Hey, Alli, do you think the person that you identify as in terms of body image follows you throughout your life?
Yes, even when we attempt to change it, it can still follow us. And that's one of the lessons about the journey of body transformation that we're going to talk about with our guest today, Miss Kate Young, who's a 36-year-old golf gal living in San Francisco. And she had a body transformation and she has been on that journey since 2010. And she's going to share the ups and downs and all arounds.
And she has some real nuggets to share with us. And before we dive in, let's give a shout out to our listener, Leona Cook. Thank you for listening, Leona. Now let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Welcome to the show, Kate. We're going to jump right in and have you take us back to your late teens and early 20s. Back when I first met you, what was your relationship with your body, health, and confidence like way back when?
I had no confidence. My self-esteem was really low. I used to get bullied for my appearance, for my weight back in school. I also didn't really have a super healthy relationship with food at the time. I grew up not really getting to go to fast food places. Like my parents always would make home cooked meals and stuff. So I didn't really get a lot of access to that. So as soon as I had a car and a job and my own money, I was going to fast food all the time. It was a little bit addicting, I guess, in that regard. It's oh, it's so good. I didn't get this growing up. And it just was not. I was also very ignorant. One of my friends roasts me to this day sometimes, where I thought that, oh yeah, you just remove the salt packet from the ramen, the little flavor packet, and make your own flavoring, that it's healthy. And it's just looking back on that, it's oh no, that is not the case.
Given that this was your history and your start and your identity was, as you said, the fat girl, what changed that made you not want to be that person?
I hated photographs of myself. They were always just awful. And then I remember one day, I had gone to the doctor and, they weigh you and the scale said 198 pounds. And I just got this filled with this sense of dread inside of myself. And I was like, if that number goes over 200, I just felt like that was some point of no return. I was like, I can't let this happen. I have got to do something, because otherwise it's just going to spiral out of control.
And then what brought you to Pink Physique? So Katie was one of our early on members at Pink Physique. And do you remember when you came in the first time, what that was like? And
gyms were intimidating. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about working out. I was scared of getting made fun of. I was scared to work out around guys. So going to a gym that was all women felt safer, I guess, in some weird way. It was just more comforting, and I felt like it was a good place to start to go.
Yeah, a lot of our ladies say that. That's why a lot of ladies will come first to a women's only place, because they do feel so intimidated to go into a co-ed place. And especially, it sounds like where you were at with your confidence and just how you felt in your body, you just weren't feeling it as far as, ooh, let me just go out and, jump out there and jump in. And I don't think you're alone in that. I think a lot of gals can relate to not being in the body you want to be in and not being in the headspace you want to be in and being super intimidated to go into this wild place we call the gym. And I remember when you first came in, Katie, you came in combat boots. you were walking on the treadmill. Like you would come in and you would just get on the treadmill. That's the only thing you would do. You would come in, you would walk on the treadmill. I would come and talk to you. You were pretty quiet back then, and you had those combat boots on. I don't know if you didn't own tennis shoes, if you didn't. I don't know what. Do you remember that? Can you give us some insight?
Yeah, I mean, once a goth, always a goth. I had my combat boots. I had, if people remember, the trip pants from Hot Topic with the chains on them, like that's just my style. That's what I rocked. And I just didn't, yeah, I didn't have any athletic clothes. I didn't really have tennis shoes per se. I was just, that's what I wore all the time. And so I was like, yeah, I'll just wear that to the gym. I don't know.
And how old were you when you started making this transformation?
Oh, geez. I think that I was like 2010, like 20, 21.
Yeah,
Maybe?
I remember you being at that, like right at that 20 mark is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite a while ago.
So if it was 2010, it was probably just the start of kind of social media. Did that have any effect on your self-esteem back then, or was that kind of early days where it just didn't really impact you?
I think social media was less impactful because it wasn't really big yet. But I mean, that was the days where what they call heroin chic was in, where everyone was obsessed with collarbones, hip bones, the thigh gap. If you're not a size 0, you're fat. The movies, you can look at movies from back at that time and they're bullying cheerleaders for being fat in those movies. And it's like, she's like a size 4, a size 2. Like, what? Like, so a product of that time.
Yeah. So, I mean, social media has only sped up. It's been a part of our culture for so very long. So it's not to say that it didn't have its impact, but maybe not quite, it wasn't in your hand 24/7, which is so deleterious to young women, still developing. Your brain is still developing when you're 20. So not to say that the movies, the magazines didn't have its impact. Like it wasn't quite this, it was different.
We're going to interrupt this interview for just a second because we've got something we want to make sure that you know.
If you're struggling with your health, with your fitness, if you don't know where to start or you know what to do and you're not doing it, we're here for you.
And all you need to do to get our help is to reach out to Shawna and I at our email, sapodcast23@gmail.com. And we're happy to help and we will be in touch. Now back to the show.
Would you say that social media has an impact on your self-awareness, your self-esteem now?
Sometimes it does. It's hard because I think working in that space, I'm a little bit more aware of how the algorithms just become a self-feeding loop and it will feed you the stuff you look at. I do appreciate that there's a lot more women posting strength related content and looking muscular and big, and like that's not stigmatized anymore. There's a lot more body positivity stuff out there on social media, which is nice because back when the movies were happening, there wasn't really a lot of that. The strong women were just portrayed as like ugly, manly looking, and now you can see sexy, strong women on social media. But I mean, the toxicity, there's extremes on both sides.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But it is nice to see the body positivity and the focus a little bit more on strength, if that's what you're interested in. And when did you make that shift from I'm 198 pounds, oh my goodness, to hey, I'm not just about weight loss, I'm about strength gain? How did that go for you?
Well, I joined, so my weight kind of like yo-yoed a little bit. Like I had lost the weight with Alli and the Pink Physique, and then I had a huge life change. I had a big breakup. I moved across the state, and my routine got disrupted, and I could no longer go to the gym, and new relationship energy and all this. So I had gained back some weight, and so I was struggling to figure out how to lose it without having that like being handheld personal training stuff going on, I had joined a CrossFit gym because I just been hearing all about it. It was like when CrossFit was first starting its to get popular. And the people there, like the coaches and some of the members, kept making all these comments about like, wow, you're really strong, like you're, super strong. And I was like, oh, am I? I don't know. But then also, it's really fun to just throw big weights over your head. So, just kind of leaned into that.
Now, I remember even when you were at Pink Physique, Katie, like I know that first your goal was like, I want to get in this certain size, I want to get thin, kind of was the mindset. And that was probably just based on what your knowledge was of what was out there and what's available and what fitness is. And I remember you being strong and impressively strong. And that's one of the exciting things that's from a trainer's perspective is a lot of times women do come in and they think they want one thing. They think they want to be thin, and then they start doing things and they start moving their bodies and they start getting stronger and they realize that they enjoy getting strong. They enjoy strength training. Maybe they don't want to be, a bodybuilder or a power lifter, or maybe they do, but it's so fun to watch how that changes a woman's confidence to actually get even just a little bit of strength going. And so, yeah, you had that. You were strong. That is definitely one of the things I remember about you. And then I also remember how, thinking back to that time, talk about relationship changes, how when we do start changing our routine, we start putting fitness in, we start changing our eating, we start getting leaner or stronger or whatever, how that can impact relationships. And I want to bring, and I'll post it in our Girls Talk Healthy Aging private Facebook group. I have a picture of Katie's, like a little testimonial that she did way back. And I did not bring it today, but I will post a picture of it so everybody can see that. So do you remember how those early changes, and then of course the move and all that, how that changed things in your journey of life that has led you to where you are now?
I mean, I do have like a distinct memory. I think we were doing RDLs or something at the Pink Physique, and I was like almost immediately going up to the 80-pound. It's not a barbell; it's like the preset one. I forget what those are actually called. It's not a dumbbell, but it's the long ones, And I remember you were very surprised. You were like, "Oh yeah, that's too easy. Let's go up. Let's go up." And so that felt good too. But I didn't quite translate it to like strength sport. I was just like, I don't know, I'm strong.
Yeah.
I know that when I broke up with my ex, people were making comments. Like we had been having, problems for a while behind closed doors, but there were a few people that kind of came out of the woodwork and were like, "Oh, so you got skinny and then you left, your boyfriend or whatever." And that was super annoying because it's just like that had nothing to do with it. It just happened to be the timeline of what happened. But my true friends, my like closest friends, they never thought that for a second.
Do you think that your identity changed, your self-esteem changed? Maybe you started wanting more for yourself once you gained confidence and strength in the gym? Like, do you see any kind of parallel to wanting more for yourself once you gained confidence?
I do. I will say that it took years. And I mean, back when I first was going through all that, like, I still didn't feel like any different. I still felt like that same fat girl, that I'd always been. And I mean, to be honest, she still exists inside me somewhere today. Like, I don't know if I will ever fully let go of feeling like the fat girl. Part of that is I spent such a long time being that person and getting bullied for that. Part of that is that I am a broad, tall woman. I often am just towering over other women around me. I got linebacker shoulders, which is great for my sport. But just comparatively by size, I am just bulkier than most women, which isn't a bad thing. I can at least, internalize that now. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just literally body structure and muscle. But it took a while to kind of reconcile that. I mean, it's a years long process to really get that confidence.
Yeah, I can imagine that is a real challenge when growing up in the idea that living in the smallest body is the ideal. And when, both Alli and I are not tall people. So, I haven't experienced that, but just by the fact that I'm not sure how tall you are, but you say you're quite tall, that, I know women and girls that I grew up with that didn't even want to stand tall. They wanted to slouch just because it's like, well, I don't want to be in this big body. So it's just because you stand out more, it would be even more of a challenge. And then if you got bullied for that, and then you see all these movies and media that's telling you, hey, you should be smaller. So thank goodness you found strength.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
The gals that I think can relate to you, that are not all gals are 5'2", or and living in a small body, or even, and not all gals are 5'10" and a size 0 or 2.
Yeah,
should they be? And it's so nice to see women. And that is a struggle as a trainer, and I'm sure Shawna has dealt with this as well, is, we deal with these clients that come in all different shapes, sizes, forms, and getting each of us to embrace the body that we have versus attempting to change it to a body it ain't gonna be. It's never gonna be.
Yeah. And strength really brought me back to my childhood, when I was one of the only girls in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so I was always riding bikes, climbing trees, running around in the woods, throwing ball, whatever, with the boys, keeping up with them, often running faster or climbing higher, and I lost a bit of that competitive spirit when, teenager years and all that. So going to the gym and outlifting half the men in there really just was like, brought me back to that competitive, like, anything those boys can do, I can do, and I can do it better, like, mindset. Really fun to get competitive with the boys again.
Well, that would have been a huge part of your identity that you kind of put to the side because it didn't fit with the current, what you perceived would be your current reality. So it might have been like coming home, finding that strength. So tell us a little bit about how you got into Olympic weightlifting. Probably it was the CrossFit step over. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so CrossFit has really done a lot for Olympic weightlifting as a sport. It's popularized it. It's made it more well known. So I remember, I was training at the CrossFit gym. I always liked the lifting portion of the class more than the cardio portion of the class. I've never been a cardio person. And so my coach at the time, he was like, you should do like a meet, like an Olympic weightlifting meet. He's like, there's one here in the Bay in Oakland, for first timers. So everyone there is doing it for the first time. We're all on the same page. We're all just little deer in headlights, like, together. And he's like, you should do it. He's like, if you do it, I'll coach you. And I was like, okay, so he wrote me a program, and I ditched cardio and I started just training Olympic weightlifting. And it was a lot of hard work, but then I had so much fun on meet day. Even though I was terrified and nervous and whatever, it was just like, it was such a great experience. And it made me hungry for more. And even in the gym, doing the strength side of things, I was always just super excited to chase that next like PR, lift the heavier thing. I didn't care about running a, fast mile or anything. I was like, let me deadlift all the weight,
Yeah, I love that the strength stuff. I'm with you. I do not care for the cardio so much. Feeling strong is such a fabulous thing. And I love that has helped you bring back that inner child that, that you felt like you maybe that wasn't there for a brief time or maybe a long time, but now you're getting to tap back into that. And I think that's one of the fun things that for our listeners is that we can tap back into that. Even if no matter what age or where we're at, we can go back and tap back into some of those things that we're missing out on, or that, maybe our life has kind of taken us one way, or even just society, or just other people's expectations, or maybe our own expectations, and that there are those opportunities. And it sounds like you got help, you had coaching again, and I definitely am a big believer, obviously, in that part of it. Just having mentors, having coaches, having people to guide you along. Someone, it just like in your gym where the coach said, you should try this. Like, I see this potential in you. Things that we might not see in ourselves, that someone else sees in us. And that allows us to get that seed planted. And we're like, maybe I could do this. So now, where has that taken you from that first meet? Kind of fast forward, what is Kate's life like now when it comes to fitness, health, lifting, competing?
I mean, life is life, and there's been ups and downs for sure. I did that meet, and then that qualified me for like a follow-up meet the next year in 2018. It was like the championships or something for that meet. I did that one. That was a lot of fun. I just kind of went back to like training. I tried to get stronger. I shifted focus a little bit to aesthetics because in like around that time I was still training Olympic weightlifting. I was still trying to get stronger, but at the same time I wanted to like look more muscular. I go to this big old nerd convention called Dragon Con, and I met this group there that cosplays the Spartans from that movie 300. And I was like, hey, I want to cosplay a Spartan from 300 and like get abs and look ripped. And so I was like, okay. So I focused a little bit on aesthetics for a little while, but I always, find my way back to Olympic weightlifting. And then to kind of fast forward to like a couple years after focusing on that, doing the Spartan thing, I started training Olympic weightlifting pretty seriously again. And in like 2023, I ended up qualifying for my first like national level meet. And it just happened to be here in the Bay Area. So it's really easy to do, which kind of that qualified me to go on to the international meet the following year, partially because of how much I lifted, and partially because in 2024, I aged into the masters bracket. And admittedly, you get a lot more competitive when you're competing against people your own age as opposed to people that are, 15 years younger than you. Yeah, in 2024, I went to compete in Costa Rica at the Masters Pan Ams for Olympic weightlifting, and that was a lot of fun to just go to another country to compete. And then, I just got back from competing at the Arnold up in Ohio. So that was really fun. Another national meet that did really well. And then I've been trying to like keep up with it through, another breakup and like a 6-month period of unemployment, balancing that with just life happening to you and just trying to juggle everything. But here I am.
I remember, this sounds like it's interesting how things cycle back around, because I remember back when you were training with us, the Dragon Con, and you were getting ready for that then. And that was one of the reasons the aesthetics were important to you then. And that's how it can be. We can go in and out of different phases of where we focus more on aesthetics, where we focus more on strength. And that's kind of the fun of it with strength and the whole world of exercise, and just there's so many different avenues you can take it. And I think back to the Katie that we talked about earlier, that was the self-proclaimed the fat girl, and where would she be had she not taken those first steps to get on this fitness journey? Where do you think she would be now?
I mean, I'd probably still be here in California. That's something that I had always kind of wanted to do. I wanted to get out of Georgia as soon as possible. I mean, probably still big, if I'd never really taken those first steps and learned the tools and figured out what I needed to do and found what I enjoyed. I mean, I imagine I would still be fat, probably even fatter. I mean, I have struggled with like almost like an addiction to food for the majority of my life. It's a huge struggle. I remember when in the past few years they came out and they put a term on it. They called it food noise, and I was like, not only are other people experiencing what I experience, there's a name for it, and people are validating that this exists, and that was validating to hear.
How has your nutrition knowledge changed from when you thought the ramen without the spice pack was healthy? Have you moved along that continuum to, how has your eating changed now compared to what it was?
Through the years, with ups and downs, and I found I've worked with a nutrition coach for a while. Like, I got the tools, I got the knowledge. I mean, it's crazy what like serving sizes, just looking at serving sizes. I mean, the flavor packet of the ramen notwithstanding, most of those ramen packets are going to claim there's 2 servings in there. Who's eating half a pack of ramen? No one is. It's so deceptive. And then just weighing and measuring food. I mean, it's just seeing how many calories is in like whole unprocessed foods. You get more volume versus like little tiny bits of food. So just like a lot of eye-opening things about that. But I know for me, at the end of the day, I'm more successful when I am getting told what to do. When I'm getting the framework given to me and I just have to follow it, and just trying to be consistent with everything has been the biggest game changer. Yeah.
Well, I like that you mentioned the education piece, that is the eye opener. And when you know more, you generally do better. You might not make the right choice all the time, but you make an informed choice. So that's what we're all about. And we encourage our listeners and our clients to learn about food, to maybe food log, not forever, but just for a certain amount of time, because then you do become aware of serving sizes and how deceptive when you say you look at that ramen packet and it's like, oh, 400 calories. Well, but that's 2 servings, or, so it's like there's so many ways that the food industry kind of tricks you into eating more. When you look at a serving of granola and you say, oh, well, that's not bad, but then it's like, oh, 2 tablespoons. Well, nobody's eating 2 tablespoons of that. So the whole idea of like educating yourself in terms of what you're putting into your body is a big eye opener. And I think,
and also, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
On. Yep.
Just one of the things that you said about maybe not having to track forever. Like, for me, I've noticed that if I'm not conscientious of it, the trend line, I will gradually start regaining weight. And part of the journey for me is accepting that I lost the genetic lottery when it came to the metabolism piece of it. My nutritionist that I'd been working with actually suggested that I go see like some doctors and find out, like, is there something else going on? Because I shouldn't be having to eat this little calories to go lose weight. Like, I remember when I was working with Alli, I think we'd gotten me down to like 1,200 calories, which is ridiculous. I'm 5'7". I'm muscular. I'm working out, and like to cut down, before I had to get down to like 1,100. So, I'm visiting doctors and all my tests are coming back normal, which is good. But like, you go to I think it's an endocrinologist, and you're like, maybe there's something wrong. I don't know. I shouldn't have to eat this little to see some progress. And the tests all come back normal. And he's just like, yeah, some people just have slower metabolisms than others. And so just kind of accepting that I'm one of those people that's going to have to just be more conscientious than the average person. Like, almost like someone with diabetes has to be more conscientious than the average person. Like, it is what it is. You got to deal with the cards you're dealt.
I would say it's not more than the average person. I would say that's actually more the norm. I think that's one of the lies that we all are kind of have in our mind, is that some people can just, and there are some people that can eat more, and but for most of us actually are not able to just eat freely and not have consequences of weight gain. And we're not just able to eat fast food freely and not have consequences. And we're not able to just eat any old serving size of our food and not have the consequence of weight gain. Like, that is not an exception. That really is the rule. And unfortunately, I think one of the things that a lot of people believe is that it's more exceptional than it is, that it really is. And I like that you talk about you kind of have ups and downs, because I also think that that's more the rule than some exception. Most of us don't just stay at the same size without effort, without exceptional effort. And especially at certain times in our journey, you mentioned moving, breakups, relationship changes, food noise, dealing with, we have so much access to food in this country and so much access to processed food. So really the deck is stacked against us, and that's not the average. That's most of us. The deck is stacked against us. And then you throw in alcohol and liquid calories from sodas and all the things. And they're just, our body was not meant to process and handle that load of fast processed calories. So a lot of us have to be diligent and log and go on phases where maybe we tighten things up and get a little more serious about our food and track more. And then times where we're, okay, I'll be a little more lax now. There's going to be a consequence probably of that laxity. But one thing that and you can tell me if this is true, Katie, I do feel like you've been more in control of how far you let that go over these years, or at least now learning that there's a path to not let yourself go too far in the direction of weight gain. Would you say that that's something that you have been able to get back on track?
It's been kind of ups and downs. I mean, the first time I think I regained, like, I'd lost 60 pounds originally when I was working with you. And I think that I would regained like maybe 40 because I moved and I hadn't had time to figure out what the heck maintenance was. And then I think I lost like 30 of it, and then I would gain and lose the same 20 pounds, every year, which felt like a big swing. And then I lost when I was cutting real deep to get abs, almost at show, not quite as deep as if I was doing a show, but we were almost there. I think I had lost 30 or 40 pounds and then gained it back the 30 pounds. And then, I mean, it's just wild swings, but I mean, some of that, in 2023, I left a really long relationship, and, you talk about alcohol. I fell into the trap of partying, and just got off the bandwagon completely at that point. But life, life happens.
Life happens, yeah. And I think that that's more normal than we realize, that life happens to people, and that people, especially that have had a significant weight gain. I would say 60 pounds is a significant, not weight gain, weight loss and then gain. It's not uncommon for people to, after they've lost that initially, to gain it back, because what I find with clients is, I think of it when clients come to me and they initially losing weight, they're like babies, like you're like a newborn, and a lot of clients, they think they're grown. They're newborns, and maybe now they're an infant, or maybe they're a toddler, but they think they're grown. And because of that, they think, oh, I'm good now. Okay, I can do this on my own. I don't need to track anymore. I can let life happen. And unfortunately, they're not grown. We're not grown yet. It takes years, and we're still growing. And that's what I hear when you say that person is still there. It is truly a journey, and you are learning, and you're still learning how life impacts your emotions, your alcohol intake, how that impacts your weight, all these things that we're still learning. So kudos to you that you're still in the fight. You're not, and you are learning, and that you are growing, and you might not be grown yet, but you're more grown now than when you were a baby with me. And that's huge.
And also, I mean, weight moves weight, and a lot of the weight gain that I had was also muscle gain. So it wasn't all fat. There was a lot of muscle gain in that time. I mean, when I first lost weight with you, I think I went from like, the 198 or whatever down to like 139, but I was just super skinny. And then when I cut down for Spartan the last time in 2022 to try to get abs, I mean, I rolled up at like 150, 155. So like, there was definitely muscle added to that. So it wasn't all just like wild fat gain. And it was the silver lining that, the scale was heavier. I didn't really love photos, but like I could move weight, and that felt really good. And that kind of made it a little easier to swallow. And one thing I find really interesting as well, there's all these studies coming out about formerly obese people, their hormones, even 1 year after losing weight, their hormones that make them feel hungry are at a higher level than average people, and the hormones that make them feel satiated are at a lower level than average people. Like that, it stays that way. And so formerly obese people, like the deck is also stacked against you from that standpoint in maintaining your weight. And that is a tough pill to swallow for people like me. But
that's part of dieting. And even though I was not at a super heavyweight, even I can tell you as a competitor, as a former fitness competitor, that is super true. When you go on an extreme and you lose and you get really lean, your body is starving for calories, and it's going to demand some of that back and a lot of that, if you and so that's another thing with our mindset too, of wanting to lose quickly. We want to lose quickly, or we do go like you said, you wanted to be skinny, like the mindset was different. Now you're in a different place of what you're looking for, what feels good for you, what you have a different understanding of body composition. And so one of the things that also hurts us in that area is that we, as women, that Shawna, I know you can attest this, people come to us and they're like, I want abs, or I want to see my, I want to be, and having abs is a whole different level of being lean. And especially when you don't have any muscle, you have an excess of fat and you on abs. Like that's an extreme change. And so Shawna and I work to get muscle on people's bodies, even if they're not thinking about that. And, there are implications. There's a difference when we can start the body positivity, and we can start looking at women, we can start looking at our shapes and our frames, and we can start feeling good about being in a different place than the I want to be skinny place, because that might not be the realistic place for our body. And if it isn't, and for most of it, it isn't, our body is going to fight that unless you're taking something to combat that, or you're just constantly but even dieting, you're going to have to come off of that at some point. It's just not real life to stay on a restrictive diet.
Looking back at kind of your journey now with older, wiser eyes, what do you wish that you knew? What do you know now that you wish you would have known back then?
I mean, I think that I knew on some level most of the things that I should have known back then. I wish I would have known how to better execute it, or how to better balance it with the realities of life. I think that going back to what you were talking about social media, you see all these really high performing athletes, and you're like, oh man, why can't I perform that well or do this, that, and the other? And then just kind of realizing how much work goes behind the scenes. And it's not something that the average person can just attain by going to the gym 30 minutes a day. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot of hard work. I also want to encourage other women to pursue strength. There's a lot of misinformation out there. People think that they're going to touch a dumbbell and they're going to accidentally get bulky and accidentally look manly. And it's just like, I have the body type where I put on muscle extremely easily, and I still have to try to look bulky. Like ladies, it is not going to happen to you by accident. Lifting heavy is not going to make you look manly in any capacity. You have to do that on purpose. So don't avoid strength training because you're scared of looking bulky, because it's not going to happen on accident.
Do you think that you were really hard on yourself when you found the ebbs and flows of fitness, maybe times where fitness wasn't a big part of your daily life and then you beat yourself up? Do you have a better understanding that now, hey, this is just life, this is how it is? Do you think that maybe would have helped if you were a little easier on yourself?
Probably, but I've always been highly self-critical, and I mean, even to this day, I'm pretty hard on myself. I don't know if that ever goes away. Like, I can like logically know those things, but emotionally, you still can't help but sometimes feel like a failure. Like, you're like just always highly self-critical.
That's fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think women are especially hard on ourselves. I mean, only because that's my lived experience. I don't know men's lived experience, but I do feel that we are especially hard on ourselves, and we carry that thought of, for you, it was like, I'm the fat girl, and it's hard to shake off those identities. Even when we find the strong girl identity, you're having a rough day, and it's like, oh man, I'm just the fat girl. So it's a lot of self-talk to kind of get you out of that. If you had any advice for someone that, maybe isn't in the best place, something that you've learned that has helped you kind of take that step forward, what would it be?
It's all about progress, not perfection. It's okay to make mistakes. Just try to remain consistent, because it's not going to happen overnight. You didn't put on the weight overnight. And it's really just, as one of my best friends likes to say, the aggregation of marginal gains. It's just one little bit at a time. And eventually, you just are consistent, the results will come.
Yeah.
But it's not linear. It's not a linear progress.
Yeah, and even when the results come, there's still like one step forward, two steps back, and then sometimes it's three steps forward, one step back. But that's how it's going to be. Like, I'm almost double your age, and that's how it is. At any age, whether you're younger or older, the point is just to keep putting the foot forward, keep stepping into it.
Yeah. I want to ask you, Kay, since we are girls talking healthy aging, about what Shawna's talking about. Like, I'm at a different age than you. Shawna's at a different age. Like, what do you, thinking about aging, what are you looking forward to? How do you want to age? You're in your 30s. So this, hopefully the road is a long way ahead. What do you want that to look like?
I want to keep being strong. I want to keep chasing those PRs. I want to keep competing. I'm hoping to go back to the international, level again, maybe next year. I want to, keep staying fit, or as fit as I can. It is eye-opening how you don't recover quite as quickly as you used to. But you just gotta do what you can for your age.
Yeah, you adapt. And you know what I find with myself and my clients, that when you have a performance goal and you're focusing on that, oftentimes the aesthetics will follow. Because if you're eating to either make weight or be as strong as you can, you're probably not sitting on the couch eating Doritos. Your nutrition is going to be like more supportive. Not to say that you can't have things from time to time, but when you have that performance goal, it just changes the whole focus. It's so much more meaningful than just that number on the scale.
Yeah, definitely.
If you had a wish for our listeners today, what would it be?
Just try to compare you to you. Don't compare yourself to everybody else. You're in competition with yourself, and give yourself a little grace sometimes when stuff happens, but also try not to just with reckless abandon swing to the complete opposite side of the direction. If you can afford it, coaching is just game changer, absolute game changer. Especially if you're going to be going to do something like Olympic weightlifting where it's so technique heavy. It's like the snatch is the most technical movement, I think, in fitness, in my opinion anyway. And you want to avoid injury, so having someone to kind of watch over you and correct you in real time is really just priceless. And don't be afraid to try new things. Fitness shouldn't be a chore. You shouldn't dread doing it. Like, whatever you like to do is going to make it easier to get the results that you want.
My wish is that we recognize it is a journey. And a lot of us, if we're new, or even we've been doing it for a few years, we're still babies, infants, toddlers, maybe tweens. But it takes a while to get to professional level of anything. I don't know if we call it professional level with fitness, but just you have to stay in the game and learn, and life is going to happen. And you just even if you get off track, get back on track. And like Katie said, get help, like get a coach, get help. Don't be afraid to have someone who has more experience and who can see the road ahead on this journey.
And I really like your saying of compare you to you, but I'm going to add on that because I have the gift of age in that it's difficult as a 63-year-old to not be comparing myself to who I was in my 30s. And that's not fair. I don't want to go sit on the couch and, I actually have taken up knitting, but just be a knitter and, just be like, well, that's all in the past. No, that's not in the past, but maybe some of that performance was in the past, and because as I've aged, I have had to, manage expectations. I still can keep them high, but if I'm going to feel good about myself, whether it's performance, whether it's looking in the mirror and looking at wrinkles or gray hair, like I can't compare myself to who I was. I need to offer myself grace and be fair to who I am today while still striving to be my best self. So that I think not comparing yourself to others, because comparison is a thief of joy, but also not comparing yourself to who you were 20 years ago. Some of my clients will come and say, well, I used to be able to do XYZ. It's like, well, that's an unfair comparison.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.